Hey folks, Councilman Rasmussen here, giving you an update from the council meeting that we finished this evening. This is October 4th, 2021. It's a little bit late, already 9:30 to get started, so it was a long meeting, but it's late and I'll try and keep the update for this week, or this meeting at least a little bit short. For those of you who watching this is the first one, I'm trying to do a little quick update on the council meeting, goings on of the council, if you would, each meeting. So for those people who can't tune in via the Zoom call or who aren't able to attend in person, can get a little bit of an idea on what the concept was or what the discussions for the evening were. So the this evening, as all meetings start, we have a little bit of updates. This is an opportunity for council members, the mayor and the town staff and the chief of police to give some updates. Not a ton of updates tonight. There were a couple of pieces. The town manager noted the fall cleanup. So I mentioned this last time. Fall cleanup is going to start on the end of this week, on the 9th, and it runs all the way through the 22nd. So this is the opportunity where if you have large items and things that you want to put out on the curb, the town staff will come along and pick those up. We are not doing a central drop-off point like we had done last year. So this year it's put things out at the curb. You can find more information. It's up on the town website. It's going to be going out. You'll see more of it in the bills, and it's published in the newspaper. So the main cleanup starts the 9th, goes all the way through the 22nd. We do it again in the spring. But this is a chance to get some of those items picked up that maybe don't fit in your garbage, or that you don't have the ability to get all the way up to the transfer station or something like that. Something that was noted that I think is kind of interesting. The town manager noted that as we're pursuing the design for a water tower on the northern part of town, so this would be up near where the RV center is, kind of across from the rest stop. That right now the concept is to have just a very simple "Welcome to Smyrna" sort of painted on the water tower up there. But he did note that if there were other ideas or things to bring to what that water tower might look like as sort of an entryway to the town of Smyrna, that we should bring those forward as soon as possible so that they could be included in the planning process. I've mentioned this to people over the years. I think water towers are obviously a great piece of infrastructure, but they're and also a potential billboard for how we want to present our community. And so I intend on at least throwing out there some ideas for other things that we might do. I could see some pretty cool designs on water towers that maybe showcase history or aspects of the town. Certainly, if you paint a water tower, you wrap it, there are costs associated with it. There's greater upkeep than just having a blank water tower or one with just a word on it. But it seems to me like a missed opportunity to take this sort of like billboard that we get that everyone gets to see from the highway and not do something kind of fun with it. So if there's any ideas, if people have got thoughts about that, send them to me. I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to pass them along to that planning process, because I think if anything, there's a chance to do something. It doesn't mean that it couldn't happen later on down the road, but at least get it included in that planning process and part of the discussion. So the another piece that was mentioned in the updates is we've got a bunch of zoning ordinance updates that are going to be coming, so we'll probably have to schedule a special council meeting, and I'd probably do I'll do a piece on that when it comes forward that pretty much just focuses on some big zoning changes. There's a lot of things coming down the pipe associated with the comp plan that the town has recently approved, as well as some changes, some bigger zoning changes that have been in the works for a long time to try and update aspects of our zoning code that, in my opinion, have held back some redevelopment or some development efforts, and in some very clear cases have made it more difficult for businesses to locate here in our town. So there's 4 zoning ordinances that we're going to be dealing with at a special meeting. It's probably not going to be until the beginning of November because of the rules about how it needs to be scheduled. But that's going to be coming, and so you'll hear more about that from me as we get closer. We had a couple of cool presentations this evening as part of the council. The first was from the Sean Shannon II Skate Memorial Fund. So Sean was a young man who was killed in an accident in 2019. And his family, as well as a lot of his friends, came to the council this evening to present about what their fund is. Um, he was unfortunately killed as he was trying to help a motorist who was in a car accident, and another vehicle struck him. Um, and they had a very touching, very moving video that they presented. But really, their goal is they believe that skateboarding is this fantastic opportunity to bring community together. I totally agree with this, actually. I had the chance to help produce a video years ago that sort of took the metaphor of a skate park and applied it to if schools were like skate parks, and the kind of the way that people challenge themselves and grow and practice, and the type of reward structure and support structure that you find in skate parks is a pretty unique idea. And they really embraced that idea that they wanted to encourage and grow the skating community. They wanted to do it in our town. And one of the big pieces they'd like to see is our skate park, which, while we did some repaving on it, I don't think anybody would go out and say that it's the greatest skate park that they've ever been to. I don't skate, not since I was a little kid. I probably fall too hard and break too easily at this point. But the idea of doing some renovations and really creating a great skate park, a more modern skate park, is actually something we've talked about from the council perspective for a little while. And in part of the planning process that we're doing for the Parks Master Plan, including in that would be the idea of building out a much nicer skate park or skate and bike park that we think could meet the needs of our community as we have it, as well as also bring people into our community to showcase the other great things that we've got. So, but the Sean Shannon, the Second Memorial Fund, they sort of came in and they want to be a participant. They want to raise money and do programs for skate parks. And I think it's just a cool group of folks who are active here in our community. So check them out if you get a chance to. And the other presentation was from the Fresh Start Resource Center. So they've been around for a couple of years, since about 2018. And they provide some support services for people who are homeless, or people who are re-entering society, coming out of prison. They've been sort of without a home for a number of years, but providing services wherever they can. Wherever they can reach people to try and give them those little bits and pieces that they need to get back on their feet, whether it's rent assistance or getting to and from a job, things like that. They came to present to the council, tell a little bit about what they've done, and try and ask the council whether or not there's an opportunity to support them in finding a more permanent or at least a location for them to provide their services. It's kind of a tricky question because they're hoping to utilize a building that the town is vacating on Main Street. And I know that there are some expressed concerns from some of the business owners on Main Street about this. And I think it's a kind of a tricky piece in that, Main Street is supposed to be about economic activity, and this doesn't necessarily fit with economic activity. But there's still that same place where homelessness is a part of our community. There are people with needs in our community that we need to figure out how to support so that they can get back on their feet and become productive members of society. And we need to do that someplace. So the council talked about, making sure that they did some outreach to people, to the businesses and other folks and the folks who live in this area, to get their feedback on whether they thought it would be a good place to put this service, and then come back to council after that they've done a little bit more legwork. But it's a great resource for those people who absolutely need it in the community, and they've done a great job on a shoestring of putting together an organization and supporting a number of folks, and it was very moving to hear some of the stories of people that they've been able to help over the last number of years. So we'll hear more about them as we in the next couple of council meetings. The old business items that we addressed, so these are things that we've already talked about in one way or the other from council. Last meeting, we did a first reading of an ordinance to update the rules for trailers, boats, and off-highway vehicles in town. We actually had quite a bit of a discussion about it this evening because the restrictive nature of the new ordinance, we got a legal interpretation that said that it could in theory, prevent people like work trailers who are downtown parked to be working on a building or a project or a landscaping trailer. And we need to figure out how to make sure that the ordinance is not restrictive to preventing those sort of business uses during business hours, and really addresses what the intent was, which is people who are parking trailers on the street overnight, and utilizing the street for things that it's not intended to be used for. So that ordinance is going to be updated again. This is the second reading. We'll have a third reading of the ordinance next meeting, and see an update where the attorneys had a chance to craft some language, make it a little bit meet more of what the intent is from the council. We also had a second reading of the ordinance to update the requirements around trash recycling and waste containers, and that moved forward as it was. We did say that we would wait until January 1st to begin implementation of the new ordinance to make sure that people have time to make adjustments to wherever they're going to be able to put their recycling and waste containers. It's been in the code for a long time. If you live in town, you probably have heard this before, but it's never really been enforced. So the idea here is to put some more enforcement behind it. However, give a little bit of leeway for folks who need to figure out a way to obscure their containers or something like that. So that won't go into effect until January 1st, rather than immediately upon the ordinance being passed. We did set the time for trick-or-treating. It's an official action for the town to every year say which date and time we are going to host trick-or-treating. And as is Smyrna's tradition, we trick-or-treat on Halloween. So from 5 to 8 p.m. Is the official trick-or-treating time on October 31st. I know that my kids will want to be out there as close to 5 o'clock as possible, so that they can get all of the candy and I can come home and take my parental tax of that candy. So if you're going out, that is the official. Obviously, there are other trunk or treats and all sorts of other great events that happen around Halloween, but the official town of Smyrna trick-or-treating time is going to be on Halloween from 5 to 8 p.m. The town did approve a request as part of our budget process to make a budget donation to the Lillian Smith Senior Center. Nonprofit organizations often come to the town to request funding for one thing or another, whether it's operational funding or maybe a capital project. In the town where we can, we try to make sure we consider them and put them in the budget process. And so we've tried to refine that a little bit more this last year, asking for formal requests rather than just sort of a blanket, expectation that you're going to receive some sort of a donation. And so we did approve as part of our budget process to add into the budget a request from the Lillian Smith Senior Center for $1,000 donation for this year. And a first reading, so this one is kind of an interesting piece because it's an evolving conversation statewide. The town approved an ordinance to establish a lodging tax. So not all, but some municipalities in the state have a lodging tax. The state has a lodging tax. And that lodging tax is applied to as a percentage to hotels and motels. It's generally a fairly small amount. Our approval is a 3% lodging tax, and this is a first reading, so that can actually be amended over time. But it's it's beginning that process. It does apply to any hotel or motel in the town of Smyrna. It will also apply to VRBOs and Airbnbs. That is a growing concern and growing issue for a lot of communities, especially down at the beaches, where a lot of property owners have sort of evaded the lodging tax because of it's more difficult to enforce those. So there is a process in place for how we can try and enforce that. It's not a lot. I don't know that there is an Airbnb in Smyrna. I think I've looked and I didn't find anything. So, but we're putting that in place so as we grow as a town, we can make sure that we implement the lodging tax. The funds for this are all dedicated to go into public safety. So this is going to be a dedicated funding stream that will put these funds into public safety. So it's not a general fund type of of thing for us. So probably see more about this as we come. And if you got questions about it and how that's applied and anything like that, obviously let me know. I'm happy to let you know what we know so far and how it's going to be applied. Those are the big items that were on our agenda for tonight. Actually, sorry, I missed one. So the Parks and Rec Committee actually submitted a proposal to create what is called an art park. There's a piece of property that the town owns. It's 20 South Delaware Street. It's pretty much right behind Town Hall. And the property had a house on it years ago. The house was in bad condition and eventually was torn down. And the property basically sits empty. It's not the Boys and Girls Club. There's a trailer over at the Boys and Girls Club, but it's owned right now by the Boy Scouts. And the proposal was to take that storage container, that storage trailer, and park it on this piece of property, and then create a system by which anybody can request from the town to come and paint it. And you could picture, my daughter's third grade class, right? And the class comes together and everybody goes down and paints the trailer for one day. And then, it's a temporary thing where the next group that comes along gets to paint right over whatever you did before. But it's kind of a cute little community art piece. It is a piece of property that hasn't been being used, and so this could do something with it and give an opportunity to have a little bit more arts and artistic expression downtown. So that got approval. It will move forward with some due diligence, and there'll be a little bit of site work that has to happen. You have to level a little ground to make sure that the trailer can be put on it safely. But coming soon, a neat little art park that's going to be downtown. I think the Boy Scouts are going to put in requested to build a couple of benches and things like that give people a place to sit when they're there. So that should be kind of neat. So those were the big items for the meeting. A lot of discussion on a lot of items, and so that's why it's a 9:30 update tonight versus like an 8:30 update last week. But I'll be back with more things, more questions or anything like that come up. If you have those, please send them my way, and I'm happy to address them in the comments. And I will make sure that we get another update. The next council meeting, for anybody paying attention, is going to be on October 18th at 7 o'clock in Town Hall. So if you can't make it, you can obviously tune in via Zoom or wait for my awesome update after the meeting. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone has enjoyed the first few days of fall that we had. Now it's hot and humid again for a couple of days. And take care. We'll see you soon.